I never expected to return to Oakwood Manor. Yet here I stood, staring up at the imposing Victorian mansion where I'd spent the first 18 years of my life, each window seeming to judge me with its cold, dark gaze. The invitation to my mother's 60th birthday celebration had arrived 3 weeks ago. Elegant cream cardstock with gold lettering, as pretentious as everything else about the Harrison family. My hand tightened around the strap of my designer briefcase, not out of anxiety, but determination. At 35, I was no longer the timid girl who'd fled this house in tears 17 years ago. Now I was Victoria Chen, CEO of Phoenix Technologies, worth over $30 million. The same millions that had been quietly supporting this household for the past decade. The front door opened before I could reach for it, and there stood Miranda, my younger sister by 11 months, looking exactly like the society princess she'd always been. Her perfectly highlighted blonde hair framed a face that had seen the best cosmetic surgeon's money, my money, could buy. You actually came. Her lips curved into what others might mistake for a smile. I knew better. Mother will be surprised. Hello, Miranda. I kept my voice neutral, professional, the same tone I used in hostile takeover meetings. Happy to see you too. She stepped aside, her Louboutin heels clicking on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the vast foyer, bouncing off the crystal chandelier I'd paid to have restored last spring. Not that anyone knew that. All my financial contributions to the Harrison family had been made through discreet third parties. Everyone's in the main parlor, Miranda said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Do try not to make a scene. This is Mother's special day after all. I almost laughed. If she only knew what I had in my briefcase, what I discovered 6 months ago. When I finally decided to investigate why I always felt like an outsider in my own family, the DNA test results were just the beginning. The main parlor was exactly as I remembered, ornate, overwhelming, and designed to intimidate. About 40 guests milled around, all from Hartford's elite social circles. I recognized most of them from charity galas and board meetings, though none recognized me. To them, Victoria Chen was a name in Forbes, not the Harrison family's other daughter. My mother, Elizabeth Harrison, held court near the fireplace. At 60, she still commanded attention, her silver hair styled perfectly, her designer dress probably purchased with an anonymous donation I'd arranged last month. Beside her stood my father, Richard, looking distinguished as always in his tailored suit. He'd needed a heart operation 2 years ago. I pay for that too. Victoria. My mother's voice cut through the party chatter. What an unexpected pleasure. The room didn't quite fall silent, but the volume definitely dropped as heads turned to watch the drama unfold. The prodigal daughter returns. I could practically see the thought bubble above their heads. Mother. I crossed the room, my Armani heels silent on the thick carpet. Happy birthday. I held out a small, exquisitely wrapped package. Inside was a vintage Cartier bracelet. The real gift would come later, though not the one they were expecting. How thoughtful. She took the package without opening it, passing it to Miranda, who appeared at her elbow like a well-trained puppet. I trust your business is doing well. The slight pause before business spoke volumes. To Elizabeth Harrison, technology companies were beneath the dignity of old money families like ours. Never mind that my business had tripled their net worth through careful, anonymous investments. Very well, thank you. I smiled, channeling every board meeting where I'd faced down hostile male executives. Phoenix Technologies just acquired our largest competitor. The merger made quite a splash in the financial news. Oh yes, Miranda chimed in, her voice honey-sweet poison. I read about that. Isn't it wonderful, Mother? Our Victoria's finally made something of herself, even if it's just in computers. Just in computers. The same computers that pay for her monthly spa treatments, her husband's gambling debts, and her son's private school tuition. I bit back the retort rising in my throat. Not yet. The time wasn't right. Indeed, Mother sipped her champagne, the vintage brand I'd specially imported for the occasion. Though I do wish she'd chosen a more suitable career. Law perhaps, like your sister, or married well, at least. And there it was. The familiar pattern of subtle digs and disapproval. For years, it had hurt, made me question my worth, drove me to work harder, achieve more, prove myself. Now I understood why nothing had ever been enough. Speaking of suitable careers, Miranda said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Did you know Victoria's company is involved in artificial intelligence? Rather fitting, don't you think, Mother? Considering. She let the word hang there, a deliberate trailing off that drew curious looks from the surrounding guests. I knew what was coming. Miranda never could resist going for the kill. After all, she continued, her smile sharp as a blade, it must take one to make one. A few nervous titters from the crowd. My mother's lips tightened disapprovingly, not at the insult, but at Miranda's lack of subtlety. In a Harrison household, cruelty was meant to be served with perfect manners. Miranda, Father said quietly, his first word since I'd arrived. Perhaps this isn't the time. Oh, but it is, Daddy. Miranda's voice rose slightly. The champagne in her hand wasn't her first of the evening. Everyone's always so careful, dancing around it. But we all know the truth, don't we? About where Victoria really came from. I could stop this. A single word would silence her. But I waited, letting her dig herself deeper. Sometimes the best strategy was to let your opponent defeat themselves. The surrogate should be grateful we gave her a home at all, Miranda announced to the now silent room. Instead of trying to buy her way into society with new money and pretending she belongs in our world. The silence that followed was absolute. Every eye in the room darted between Miranda's triumphant face and my carefully controlled expression, waiting for the explosion, the denial, the scene that would give them gossip fodder for months. Instead, I smiled. You're right about one thing, Miranda. I opened my briefcase slowly, deliberately. It is time for the truth. Victoria. My mother's voice held a warning. Don't make a scene. A scene? I withdrew a thick folder. No, Mother. I'm simply agreeing with Miranda. Everyone should know exactly where I came from, and more importantly, I paused, savoring the moment I'd planned for months, where she came from. Miranda's face lost some of its color. What are you talking about? It's interesting, isn't it? I continued conversationally, how some hospitals keep records for decades, especially prestigious private hospitals that cater to wealthy families, like Oakwood Memorial, where we were both born. Victoria, that's enough. Father stepped forward, but his voice lacked conviction. He'd always been the weaker one, following Mother's lead in everything. Did you know, I addressed the riveted party guests, that in 1988, Elizabeth Harrison gave birth to twins, but one baby was sickly, not expected to survive, and the Harrisons had already arranged a suitable adoption for their perfect, healthy daughter. I met Miranda's increasingly panicked gaze. A daughter from a surrogate mother with excellent breeding, carefully selected to match their social status. You're lying. Miranda's voice shook. Mother, tell her she's lying. But our mother had gone very still, her champagne glass frozen halfway to her lips. Beside her, Father seemed to have aged 10 years in the past 5 minutes. The sickly twin survived against all odds. I opened the folder, removing the first document, a birth certificate. While the carefully selected surrogate baby was raised as the true Harrison heir, given every advantage, groomed for society, the real daughter was treated as the outsider. Funny how blood will tell, though. Which of us built an empire from nothing? Which of us has been supporting this family for the past decade? That's ridiculous. Miranda's voice rose to a shriek. I am a Harrison. Look at me. I look just like Mother. Amazing what money can buy, isn't it? I removed another document, before and after photos from the private clinic in Switzerland. Especially when you start the modifications young. Eye color can be changed, noses can be shaped, even bone structure can be altered. Though I doubt you remember those vacations when you were a child, do you, Miranda? The photos circulated through the stunned crowd. Miranda lunged for them but missed, nearly spilling her champagne. Our mother still hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, she knew. She'd always known this day might come. I have the DNA test results right here. I held up another paper. Would you like to see them, sister dear? Or should I say, Ms. Jensen? That was your birth mother's name, wasn't it? A lovely woman. I met her last month. She's a retired schoolteacher in Vermont. Nothing wrong with that, of course, except it hardly meets the Harrison standards of excellent breeding. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Miranda's face had gone from red to white to slightly green. She swayed on her feet, and for a moment, I thought she might faint. Why? She finally whispered. Why are you doing this? Because you called me the surrogate one too many times. I met her eyes steadily. Because every time I achieved something, You were there to remind everyone I didn't really belong. Because you've spent your entire life secure in your position as the true Harrison daughter, looking down on me when you were the outsider all along. I turned to our mother, who still hadn't spoken. Would you like to tell them why, Mother? Why you chose to raise your adopted daughter as your true heir while treating your own flesh and blood as the imposter? Was I too sickly? Too ordinary? Not pretty enough to be a proper Harrison? It wasn't like that. Mother finally found her voice, though it trembled slightly. We thought you were dying, the doctor said, and we'd already arranged everything with Miranda's mother. It would have caused a scandal to back out. So you kept us both. I nodded. But you couldn't treat us equally, could you? One had to be the true daughter, and one had to be the substitute. And you'd already committed to your choice. The silence in the room was deafening. Somewhere in the back, I heard the distinct sound of someone taking photos with their phone. By tomorrow, this would be all over Hartford's social circles. The mighty Harrisons, caught in a scandal decades in the making. I think, I said quietly, gathering my documents back into the briefcase, this is where I take my leave. Happy birthday, Mother. Consider this my gift, the truth you've been hiding for 35 years. I turned to go, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. Those anonymous donations that have been keeping this family afloat for the past decade, they stop today. I think it's time for everyone to stand on their own merits, don't you? The last thing I heard as I walked out was Miranda's sob, followed by the crash of her champagne glass shattering on the marble floor. I didn't look back. I'd spent too many years looking back, seeking approval, trying to understand why I was never good enough. The night air was cool on my face as I stepped outside. My driver was waiting with the car door open, no more arriving in taxis like I used to, trying to avoid embarrassing the family with my common ways. Where to, Ms. Chen? He asked. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. The office. I have a company to run. The first part of my plan was complete, but this was just the beginning. The Harrisons were about to learn what it truly meant to be on the outside looking in, and I had 17 years of lessons to teach them. The morning after my mother's birthday party, Hartford's social circles exploded. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications, news articles, social media mentions, messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. The Hartford Elite Daily's headline read, Harrison family scandal. Daughters switched at birth? Not quite accurate, but close enough to send shockwaves through the community. I sat in my corner office at Phoenix Technologies, 40 stories above the city, watching the drama unfold on multiple screens. Miranda had already made 3 public posts. First attacking me, then deleting it. Next playing the victim, then deleting that too. And finally a carefully worded statement about family matters being private affairs. Too late for privacy now. Ms. Chen. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Your father is in the lobby. He doesn't have an appointment, but he's insisting on seeing you. I glanced at the security feed on one of my monitors. There he stood, Richard Harrison, looking significantly less polished than yesterday. His tie was slightly askew, something I'd never seen in all my years growing up. Let him wait 15 minutes, I replied, then sent him up. It was petty, perhaps, but after 17 years of being made to wait in parlors and anterooms while the real daughter got immediate attention, I felt entitled to a little pettiness. When he finally entered my office, Father looked around with poorly concealed surprise. The space was impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art worth millions, a view that dominated the city. Everything screamed power and success, things the Harrisons valued above all else. Victoria, he cleared his throat. We need to talk. Of course. I gestured to one of the leather chairs facing my desk. Would you like something to drink? Water? Coffee? The single malt scotch you're trying not to look at. He flinched slightly. The crystal decanter on my sidebar probably cost more than his monthly pension, the pension I'd been secretly supplementing for years. This has to stop, he said, ignoring my offer. Your mother is devastated. Miranda hasn't stopped crying. The phone's been ringing nonstop with reporters. How unfortunate. I kept my voice cool, professional. Having your private business become public fodder must be quite uncomfortable. Damn it, Victoria. He slapped his hand on my desk. Another first. Richard Harrison never lost his temper publicly. This isn't a game. This is your family. My family? I raised an eyebrow. The same family that treated me like an outsider for 35 years? The same family that celebrated Miranda's every achievement while dismissing mine. Tell me, father, did it ever bother you, watching your real daughter being treated as second best? He seemed to deflate, sinking into the chair. We thought we were doing the right thing. The doctors said you wouldn't survive infancy. We'd already promised Miranda's mother. And when I did survive, when I thrived despite your expectations, what was the excuse then? It was complicated. No, I cut him off. It wasn't complicated at all. You made a choice. You chose the daughter you wanted over the daughter you had. And now you're facing the consequences. What do you want? He finally asked, his voice tired. Money? Your mother and I can sign over our shares off. I laughed, the sound sharp in the pristine office. Money? Father, look around you. Everything you see, I built. Without the Harrison name, without the Harrison connections. And speaking of money, I pressed a button on my desk, and one of my screens filled with financial records. Let's talk about where your lifestyle has been coming from for the past decade. His face paled as he recognized the transactions. The anonymous donations, that was you. Every penny. The house maintenance, the club memberships, Miranda's shopping sprees, your medical bills, all paid for by the daughter you deemed unworthy of the Harrison name. Why? He whispered. If you resented us so much, why help? Because I wanted to prove something to myself. I stood walking to the window. That I could succeed, not just despite you, but beyond anything you ever imagined. That the sickly baby you were so quick to write off could become the backbone of the mighty Harrison family without any of you even knowing it. And now, what happens now? I turned back to him and for the first time, let him see the steel beneath my professional exterior. Now the support stops. Now you, mother, and Miranda learn to live within your actual means. No more secret payments, no more anonymous donations. The truth isn't just about DNA, father. It's about everything. This will destroy your mother's social standing, he said weakly. Miranda's marriage. Yes, I nodded. Her husband might have some questions about who's been paying off his gambling debts. The country club might wonder about last year's membership fees. The private school might ask about Timothy's tuition. He's your nephew. No, my voice turned sharp. He's the son of the woman who spent years reminding me I didn't belong. The woman who called me the surrogate at every opportunity. Miranda made her choices. Now she can live with them. Father stood slowly, looking older than his 65 years. You've changed, he said quietly. The Victoria we knew would never be so cruel. The Victoria you knew was desperate for your approval. She died the day I found those hospital records. I returned to my desk, making it clear the conversation was ending. You should go, father. I have a board meeting in 20 minutes. He paused at the door. Your mother, she'd like you to come to dinner, to discuss this privately as a family. I am discussing it as a family. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I'm simply doing it my way instead of hers. Give her my regards. After you left, I sat quietly for a moment, letting the satisfaction settle. Phase 2 was already in motion. My team had sent termination notices to all the shell companies I used to support the Harrisons. By the end of the month, they'd start feeling the pinch. By the end of the year, they'd understand what it truly meant to be outsiders. My phone buzzed, a text from Miranda. Please, we need to talk. Just sisters. Sisters. Now she wanted to claim that bond. I left the message unread and turned to my computer. There was work to be done, a company to run. The Harrisons had taught me well. After all, in business, as in family, sentiment was a weakness. The next few days passed in a blur of meetings and damage control. Not for the Harrisons, their PR nightmare wasn't my problem. But for Phoenix Technologies, our stock had actually risen as the story spread. Nothing attracted investors like a CEO with a dramatic backstory. I was reviewing quarterly projections when my assistant buzzed again. Ms. Chen, Miranda Harrison is here. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's causing quite a scene in the lobby. Of course she was. Miranda's solution to everything had always been to make a scene until she got her way. I switched to the security feed. My sister, no, not my sister, I reminded myself, was standing in the middle of the lobby. Designer handbag clutched like a shield, makeup perfect despite the tears streaming down her face. Call security, I instructed. Have them escort her out. Ms. Chen, My assistant hesitated. She's pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. Pregnant. Miranda was going to have another child, a child who would grow up in a very different world than her first. A world where the Harrison name carried whispers instead of respect, where doors wouldn't automatically open, where money wouldn't magically appear to solve problems. For a moment, just a moment, I felt a flicker of doubt. Then I remembered all the times Miranda had watched me struggle, had laughed at my attempts to fit in, had reminded everyone that I wasn't really a Harrison. Security, I repeated firmly, and make sure the press doesn't get wind of this. I turned back to my work, ignoring the security footage as they led Miranda out, ignoring her hysterical screams about family and forgiveness. I had learned from the best, after all. The Harrisons had taught me exactly how to treat family. The sun was setting over Hartford when I finally left the office, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. My driver held the car door open, but I paused before getting in, looking back at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, the Harrisons were probably gathering for dinner, discussing how to handle this crisis, perhaps even plotting some kind of counterattack. Let them try. I had 17 years of lessons to teach them, and we were only on chapter 1. "Home, Ms. Chen?" my driver asked. I smiled, thinking of my penthouse apartment, bought with my money, decorated to my tastes, no Harrison influence in sight. "Yes," I said. "Home." But as the car pulled away from the curb, I couldn't quite shake the image of Miranda's tears or the thought of the child she carried. A child who, like Timothy, would be innocent of their parents' sins. History had a way of repeating itself, and I had to ask myself, was I any better than Elizabeth Harrison, punishing a child for the circumstances of their birth? The question followed me home, but I pushed it aside. There would be time for reflection later. For now, I had a plan to follow, and the Harrisons were about to learn their next lesson in humility. 2 months after my mother's birthday party, autumn painted Hartford in shades of red and gold. I stood at my office window, watching leaves dance past the glass, when my assistant delivered the morning society pages. The headline made me smile. Harrison family lists Oakwood Manor for sale. It hadn't taken long for reality to set in once I cut off their financial support. The property taxes alone on the manor were astronomical, not to mention the maintenance costs, staff salaries, and utilities. Without my anonymous donations, the Harrisons were discovering just how expensive their lifestyle really was. "Ms. Chen." My assistant hovered by the door. "There's something else you should see." She handed me another paper, a medical bill from Hartford Memorial Hospital. Miranda's name was at the top. "How did you get this?" It was forwarded from accounting. "Apparently Mrs. Walker, Miranda's married name, tried to have it billed to one of your subsidiary companies, the same one that's been paying her medical expenses for the past 5 years. I scanned the bill. Prenatal care, genetic testing, specialized monitoring. High-risk pregnancy. The words jumped out at me, stirring something I didn't want to examine too closely. "Return it to the hospital," I instructed. "Market payment denied." "Yes, Ms. Chen." She paused. "There's one more thing. Your moth, Mrs. Harrison, has been calling the charitable foundation. Something about the annual Christmas Gala funding. Deny that too." The Christmas Gala had been a Harrison tradition for 30 years, a lavish event that showcased their position in society. Another thing they discovered they couldn't afford without me. After my assistant left, I pulled up the real estate listing for Oakwood Manor on my tablet. The photos showed rooms I knew intimately. The grand staircase where I'd watched Miranda descend in her debutante gown while I was told to wait in the kitchen. The library where father had proudly displayed Miranda's law school diploma while my engineering degrees gathered dust in a drawer. The garden where mother had hosted countless tea parties, always introducing Miranda as my daughter and me as simply Victoria. My phone buzzed. A text from Kelly, my closest friend and the only person who knew the full scope of my plan. "Have you seen the news? They're really selling it." "Good," I texted back. "How's the Ice Queen revenge plan feeling now?" I didn't respond. Kelly had been increasingly vocal about her concerns, suggesting that maybe I was going too far, that destroying the Harrisons wouldn't heal my old wounds. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. "Come in." "Ms. Chen." My head of security entered, looking uncomfortable. "There's been an incident at your penthouse building. Mrs. Walker attempted to access your private elevator this morning. When denied, she became upset." The doorman had to call medical services. What kind of medical services? He shifted slightly. She apparently had some kind of anxiety attack, given her condition. I see. My voice remained steady, but something twisted in my chest. Was she hospitalized? Briefly. Her husband picked her up about an hour ago. Miranda's husband, James Walker I. Another society marriage arranged by mother, though it hadn't taken long for James's gambling problems to surface. I'd been paying off his debts for years, keeping the Walker name clean for Miranda's sake. That support had ended with everything else. Thank you. Increase security at all my properties and send me the surveillance footage. Once alone, I watched the video. Miranda looked different than I remembered. Pale, drawn, her designer clothes hanging slightly loose. She was arguing with the doorman, one hand protectively over her stomach, when suddenly she swayed and nearly collapsed. The timestamp showed 9:47 a.m. At 9:47 a.m., I had been in a board meeting, calmly discussing quarterly projections while my sister, no, not my sister, I reminded myself again, was having a medical emergency in my building's lobby. My desk phone buzzed. Ms. Chen, your father is calling. He says it's about Mrs. Walker's condition. Take a message. He says it's urgent. Something about genetic complications. I felt the twist in my chest again. Genetic complications. Of course, Miranda wasn't really a Harrison, whatever modifications mother had arranged to make her look like one. Her biological background was a mystery, and in pregnancy, genetic history mattered. Before I could change my mind, I picked up the phone. Victoria, father's voice was strained. We need your help. Miranda's pregnancy, there are complications. The doctors need family medical history, genetic screening. I'm not her family, I said flatly, as everyone recently discovered. No, but you're ours. Your medical history, it could help them rule things out. Please, Victoria, this isn't about Miranda or us anymore. This is about an innocent child. An innocent child. Like I had been. Like Miranda had been, before our parents' choices shaped us into the people we became. I'll have my medical records sent to her doctor, I said finally. That's all. Thank you. He paused. The manor, we're selling it. I know. Your mother, she's not taking it well. None of this. Maybe if you just talk to her. Goodbye, father. I hung up and walked back to the window. Below, Hartford continued its busy rhythm, unaware of the drama playing out in its highest social circles. The Harrisons were falling, their carefully constructed facade crumbling piece by piece. Everything I'd wanted. So why didn't it feel like victory? My phone buzzed again. Another text from Kelly. Heard about Miranda. You okay? Was I okay? I thought of Miranda in the lobby, one hand on her stomach, reaching out for help. I thought of myself at 18, alone and afraid, reaching out to a family that had already chosen their real daughter. I'm fine, I texted back, but my finger hovered over my assistant's number. One call, and I could reinstate the medical payments. One moment of weakness. No, the Harrisons had made their choices. Now they would live with them, just as I had lived with theirs all those years. I turned back to my desk, to the work that had built my empire, to the success that had given me the power to finally make them understand what it felt like to be on the outside. But as the autumn leaves continued their dance past my window, I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere in this perfect revenge, I was losing something of myself. The question was, could I live with that loss? The call came on a cold December morning. I was in my office, reviewing the final paperwork for Oakwood Manor's sale, when my assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Ms. Chen, Hartford Memorial Hospital is calling. It's about Miranda Walker. She's been admitted with severe pregnancy complications. My first instinct was to ignore it, just as I'd ignored every Harrison crisis for the past 3 months. But something made me pick up the phone. Ms. Chen, a tired-sounding doctor explained. Mrs. Walker is asking for you. Her condition is critical, and the baby. I found myself standing before I'd made a conscious decision. I'm on my way. The hospital corridors were a maze of fluorescent lights and antiseptic smell. Outside the maternity ward, I found father slumped in a plastic chair, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Mother was nowhere in sight. Your mother's with her, he said, answering my unspoken question. The doctors. They're talking about emergency surgery. Something about the baby's heart. His voice broke. Just like you. The words hit me like a physical blow. Of course, the heart condition I'd been born with, the one that had made them think I wouldn't survive. The reason they kept Miranda as their real daughter. The genetic screening you sent, Father continued. It helped them identify the risk. But now, he looked up at me, eyes pleading. She's asking for you, Victoria. Her sister. I'm not her sister, I said automatically, but the words felt hollow. Through the window, I could see Miranda in the hospital bed, pale and small, nothing like the confident society princess who tormented me for years. Mother sat beside her, clutching her hand, looking as lost as she had at her birthday party when I'd revealed the truth. I thought of all my carefully planned revenge, the financial ruin, the social humiliation, the systematic dismantling of everything the Harrisons valued. It had felt like justice, like balance being restored. But standing there, watching Miranda fight for her baby's life, I realized something. I'd become exactly what they feared I would be, someone who valued perfection over compassion, status over family, revenge over love. I'd become Elizabeth Harrison. The thought stopped me cold. Was this what winning felt like? Making a pregnant woman suffer to punish her for crimes committed when we were both children, shaped by parents who'd made impossible choices. I pulled out my phone and made 2 calls. The first to my financial team, reinstating certain payments. The second to the real estate agent handling Oakwood Manor. Then I walked into Miranda's room. Mother looked up, her face a mixture of hope and fear. Miranda turned her head slightly, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Victoria, for everything. I moved to the bed, taking her other hand. It felt small and cold in mine. Save your strength, I said quietly. You need to focus on the baby. I was horrible to you. All those years, I thought if I kept reminding everyone you were the outsider, no one would ever question that I was the real daughter. But I was wrong. About everything. Yes, you were. I kept my voice gentle. But so was I, these past few months. The doctor entered then, looking grave. Mrs. Walker, we need to prep you for surgery now. Miranda's hand tightened on mine. Stay, please. I looked at Mother, seeing the same fear in her eyes that must have been there 35 years ago, when she faced losing her sickly baby. I'll stay, I said. That's what sisters do. Hours later, in a private waiting room that my name had secured, I told Mother and Father about my decision. The manor sale is canceled, I said, and I've reinstated the family's financial support with conditions. We'll work out the details later. Why? Mother asked, her voice barely a whisper. Because 35 years ago, you made an impossible choice. It was the wrong choice, but you made it out of fear and love. Today, I'm making a different choice. The doctor appeared then, smiling. The surgery was successful. Both Mrs. Walker and the baby girl are doing well. Would you like to see them? In the recovery room, Miranda lay holding her daughter, my niece. She looked up as we entered. Victoria, meet your namesake. If that's okay. I looked at this tiny new Harrison, born into a family of impossible choices and imperfect love. She had my birth mother's eyes and Miranda's nose. Before the surgeries, she was in her own way a perfect mix of truth and pretense, just like our family. It's okay, I said and meant it. Sometimes revenge isn't about making others suffer. Sometimes it's about being strong enough to break the cycle, to choose differently than those who hurt you. The Harrisons had taught me that appearance matters above all else. But looking at baby Victoria, I realized some things matter more. Like family, not the one you're born into or the one you're given, but the one you choose to build, flaws and all. Welcome to the family, little one, I whispered. It's complicated, but it's yours. And for the first time in 35 years, I felt like it was mine too.